Nobody ever paid him any attention. Small, weak, easy to miss. He sat in the corner while the other puppies ran around right there in the spotlight. Skot had no idea that this quiet little dog would change everything. That day, he just turned off the road, not knowing where it would lead. After his German Shepherd was gone, Skot started to shut down. The only thing that helped was getting behind the wheel and driving. No plan, no destination. On one of those drives, he found himself passing through a small town called Payette. And that's where he saw it. A hand-painted sign by the road, German Shepherd puppies. That sign marked the start of a whole new chapter in his life. Skot wasn't planning to bring home a dog. He just pulled over to take a look. The puppies were all over the place, some barking, some jumping, some climbing into people's laps. But one sat off to the side, small, with a hernia, like he already knew he didn't stand a chance. Nobody even looked at him. Skot caught his eye, and right then, he knew he wasn't leaving without him. Skot brought the puppy home and named him Biggie. From the very beginning, he was a whirlwind, always playing, running through the house, dragging things around, curious about everything. There was so much joy and energy in him, it was hard to stay in a dark place when he was around. Day by day, the bond between them grew stronger. Skot made a decision. He was going to give Biggie the best life he could. It started with a simple trip to the mountains, and that's where Biggie showed him who he really was. Turned out, Biggie was a natural-born explorer. He handled the trails like he'd walked them forever, swam in the lake like he belonged there. When Skot went snowboarding, Biggie chased him through the snow without falling behind. Almost always, he carried something in his mouth, a ball or a stick, like it meant something to him. And no matter how far he ran, one ear was always tuned back to Skot. Every day with Biggie felt real, full of movement, full of life. But Skot didn't know that all of it was about to be at risk. It hit out of nowhere. First, Biggie slowed down. Then he couldn't even get up. Skot rushed him to the clinic, and Biggie stayed there in ICU. Back home, the silence was heavy. At night, Skot would turn towards the spot where Biggie usually slept, only to remember he wasn't there. He caught himself doing that again and again. And then, after what felt like forever, Biggie came home. Skot couldn't help but smile. He just looked at him and felt something flick back on inside. From that day on, everything felt different. Skot doesn't take a single moment for granted anymore. He watches Biggie and sees it clearly. Dogs don't hold on to the past, and they're not chasing the future. They just live. And now Skot sees it as his job to make that moment as full and real as he can for Biggie. Because when you give a dog everything you've got, one day you realize you've started living again too.